Check. Hello. Oh.
Ready for action, Ron?
Okay, well, hello everyone. Welcome to Magic Morning Wood. I'm Ron.
I'm Clive.
And welcome back. Thanks for listening again. Or if this is your first time, thanks for...
Where have you been? You've missed,
two of them.
episodes.
Yeah, so. This is...
and one of them was even not bad.
Yeah, one of them was okay. Actually, there was three, but one was so bad we didn't even release it. So.
Yeah.
So today, so here we are on Magic Morning Wood. Despite the rather pornographic name, it's actually, we are here to talk about some cult movies. We're talking about movies that are have a bit of a cult following, or maybe lesser known or interesting types of movies. And so our first official one was on Brain Dead, or also known as Dead Alive in the American version. And then last was Stroszek.
Yes.
And then so today we're changing gears a little bit more modern.
We try to be democratic here, don't we? We have a show each, as in we have a choice each.
Right.
So Brain Dead was your choice, Stroszek was mine, and now it's back to
Ron.
Ron.
To my choice again. So
and tell us, Ron, what did you choose?
So this week I chose the movie Twin Falls, Idaho. 1999. American film, directed by the Michael Polish.
Yeah.
Polish. It could be pronounced Polish, I assume. Right?
I guess.
Directed by Michael Polish. We'll say Polish, and starring him and his twin brother Mark Polish. Mike and Mark.
They co-wrote the script.
And who co-wrote the script together, but Michael is the director, and then Mark and Mike both starred in it. So it's a kind of not so well-known film. I think it's not wasn't really popular at the time. I'm not sure how widely known it was. So it kind of fits into the cult movie kind of umbrella, I think, a little bit to some degree.
The way I remember it is squeaky, creaky chair there.
Yeah.
The way I remember it is it being a bit of a kind of indie cult must see when it was new, and has pretty much fallen off the radar since.
I think so.
It hasn't endured.
Yes, I think that's pretty much what it was. Is that I think it was sort of like the talk and the rage at the time. It was like I don't know if it was in any film festivals or something. Probably it was in some indie film festival somewhere, and people were like, "Oh, you got to see this movie," blah blah blah.
Right.
And then it's sort of people have kind of largely forgotten about it. I had largely forgotten about it until we were deciding last month, and it just sort of popped into my head, based on some sort of other connections with other movies.
Well, I guess the whole Siamese thing, because we'd done Basket Case, right?
Which was our unrelleased episode, which no one will hear.
Which no one will ever see.
Yeah, they're here.
Here.
Yeah.
Well, no one will ever see it.
Either,
Guaranteed, because we didn't film it.
Never to be seen again.
Yes.
So we had this sort of Siamese twins thing going on originally, and so we kind of were going along that idea.
We can't get away with it. It's a fetish.
Yeah, it seems to be a fetish, or Siamese twins. So obviously, if you haven't seen this movie, it's about Siamese twins. It's about, or also known as conjoined twins, which is more the PC term, I guess. And so now I chose this movie because I remember it's been almost 20 years, 18 years now. It's and I must have seen it soon after it was released. I can't remember under what circumstances. It must have been like I feel like it was. I don't think I heard anything about it because there was really no internet at the time. So I think I probably just stumbled across a VHS and rented it on impulse.
Right.
And I remember at the time being really impressed by it. I thought it was really, really, really good. And it was still kind of been way in the back of my head for a long time. And it just sort of came back out recently. And I was like, hey, yeah, that'd be an interesting movie to revisit. And so I went back and I rewatched just the first 10 or 15 minutes of it, just to see if it was something that maybe it was holding up, if it was going to hold up, because it was quite possible that I could go and say, oh no, this is terrible. What was I thinking? It was 20 years ago. So, but I watched the first 10 or 15 minutes, and it definitely had this really interesting, quirky kind of and almost bringing up the idea of Basket Case. For those of you who've seen Basket Case, it actually reminded me a lot of Basket Case in terms of this kind of real slummy, rundown hotel with these real weird people kind of hanging. It had the similar feel to the beginning, and I was like, it was very quirky and kind of a little bit funny, and these really weird characters and stuff like that. Oh, this kind of interesting. So I said, okay, yeah, let's do this movie. And then when I went to go watch the whole movie, it's the first 50 minutes are very different from the rest of the movie, which I think was my fault because I only watched 15 minutes and I was like, okay, yeah, I think this could be an interesting movie. I think it'll be good. But then I watched the whole thing, and I have to be honest, it didn't hold up.
Can you see what I've written here, Ron? Next to 110 minutes, insufferable. I'm so glad. You
okay. So
this hasn't held up.
No, it really didn't hold up at all. So, but I was going. I have to admit, the first 10-15 minutes was curious. It was interesting. They had, they show up at this kind of weird like hotel, and they got this real. Anyway, let's start with it. So yeah, it was. Well, it definitely doesn't hold it.
When did you first saw it? When it was new on?
I guess so.
Okay,
yeah.
Because I remember reading. I think it must have been. What's that magazine called? The Joe Kane. Is it Phantom of the Movies? Is it Videoscope? Do you remember this? It was like it was kind of like I don't know if it might still be going. It was kind of not quite a fanzine. It was a little bit more slick than that, more like a newsstand magazine. But you wouldn't see it everywhere.
Okay, yeah.
It was about cult movies. And I remember reading about this and thinking, oh, that
sounds interesting.
And it's interesting that you say now about it not holding up, because I wrote this book, right, which has about 7,000 movie reviews, and it took me like over a decade to write it. And as we talked about this before, like if we had several lifetimes each, one thing that I'd like I don't have time, but would be to go back
and
see those films again and see what's changed.
And how you have changed in terms of your perspective.
And certainly, because I looked up my review of this, and it's like not a storming review, but it's interesting, worth a look.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, no.
So was your review from like 20 years ago, or like you said 10 years ago?
Yeah.
So when did you write this review?
When
did you see it the first? When did you write your book review for it?
I think it must have been like, well, I saw it on VHS, and so it must have been, and I saw it here in Japan, so it must have been like 99, 2000, 2001. So when it was a new video release in Japan. Right?
So you've been working on the book for 20 years then, I guess, right?
Oh yeah. Okay.
So but I remember having it like and it made me kind of a little bit sad because I'm thinking like, what the fuck was I thinking 20 years ago? Like, what was wrong with me? Right?
And that was, for me, it was like, Jesus Christ, how much else in this book is like,
doesn't hold up.
Am I sending unwitting young readers to watch
crap? It's like, what's wrong with this live guy? What,
check my book.
He doesn't know anything about
he doesn't know he's sort of Twin Falls fucking Idaho up your ass.
But it also made me a little fat because I had really fond memories of this movie, and like really like being like one of those movies that really kind of shocks you into like, hey, like a surprise.
Right.
But I watched it, I was like, what the hell was I thinking? This movie, it's really, I think I was trying to sum it up as to what is really wrong with it. And I think maybe it was a product of the times, like late 90s. Maybe at the time it was probably really profound and really interesting. But the problem is that now it's just this real like pseudo profundity, this like they were probably sitting around saying like, oh, it had this idea for this, the one line that the whole movie is based on is like, the story never ends. The story never ends, it just keeps going, and every sad ending becomes happy eventually.
It's just the reader doesn't tell the story.
Doesn't finish telling
it's horrible.
And so they repeat that like 2 or 3 times through the movie, and I was like, I'm sure when they were sitting around, having drinks or whatever, saying like, hey, that's really deep. Let's write a movie about that. And probably in the late 90s, it was pretty deep. It was pretty profound. But thinking of from today's perspective, it was just so eye-rollingly terrible. It was like, come on, guys.
And it proved as well that this kind of irritating hipsterness has been with us for longer than...
I guess so. I think maybe it's just that, we're just so cynical these days that maybe at the time it was maybe a sweet story that was kind of a nice idea back in in the late 90s, and now here it is 20 years later, from looking at it from a different perspective 20 years later, that we've had so much other shit happen the last 20 years that maybe we just can't enjoy it the way it is. Maybe the cynicism is part of our culture, but I just was dumbfounded how much I didn't like this movie now.
Here's an example, actually. This will just make you think I'm not watching this fucking thing. There's like one scene where two grown men are fucking trick-or-treating.
Yes.
And then they go around to this girl's house and she says, oh, you've been trick-or-treating? That's cool. No, it's not.
It's not cool. It's not cool at all. But anyway, but I mean... And the other problem I think that also like made me feel really let down, because I was going off of the first. I just made the decision to redo it based on the first like 15 minutes, which is this very different from the rest of the movie. But then they do bring it back kind of halfway through with the whole Garrett Morris part with the and so it was very uneven too. Like it was just like, what exactly kind of movie you're guys trying to make here?
It's slightly Lynchian at the beginning, isn't it? With that elevator guy.
Very, very Lynchian. Yeah. So. Yeah.
But in our defense, what I was going to say was, clearly, like you said, it's some kind of generational shift. It's not just us, because as I said, this got good reviews in the videos, and absolutely. I think whenever I don't remember hearing bad reviews of it. I think it was one of those things. Oh yeah, you got to see Twin Falls, Idaho. It's like, oh, it's really cool. Could be kind of thing. These two guys go trick or treating. It's like,
they're Siamese twins.
Yeah, no, and I'm wondering if actually it's even the filmmakers might hate it.
I actually had the exact same thought. I was thinking, like, would really love to see like an interview with Mike and Mark Polish, who go back and watch the movie again and see if they actually think it holds up.
But Ron, don't forget that a sad ending could become a happy ending. So we just haven't told the story
20 years from now, that story will continue and we'll love it again. So
when we're senile.
Yeah, and drooling. Anyway, so
what's it about, Ron?
Let's talk about. So basically, this movie is essentially about some sad conjoined twins,
right?
And
they're sick as well. Right?
One is sick. Yeah. One is sick, and so that was the whole thing: is that one is sick and the other one is not. So it starts off, and you don't really know if you don't know anything about this movie going in, it doesn't really tell you much, and so it shocks you into it. So it starts off with our heroine, who is a prostitute, played by Michelle Hicks.
They don't come full out, and it's kind of hinted.
It's hinted that she is, but I mean that's why she's there, I assume, right? I mean, there's no other reason for her to be in this hotel room. But I mean, so it seems like maybe she was an ex-prostitute and she's coming out of retirement or something, or she needs some extra money, so she's just doing it again, and she's never, because she says that she's never been in a hotel like this before. So anyway, so it's you're supposed to assume that she's a prostitute coming to this person's hotel room. Anyway,
played by former fashion model Michelle Hicks,
who it does still work. She was in she's been in Mr. Robot, which is the new TV show with Christian Slater.
Like
really, I really liked that show a lot. But anyway, and she was so she was also in Mulholland Drive, also very Lynch movie. So
actually, thinking of the main guy of Mr. Robot reminds me a bit of the Polish brothers.
Oh yeah, a little bit. Yeah, well, he has that kind of like no expression, can't really kind of thing. So, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. So we find out her name is Penny, and so Penny's in a cab, and
by the way, you're on your own here, Ron.
Okay.
I can't summon the energy
to
go the whole plot with this.
Let's keep it brief, okay?
Yes.
I think there's to be honest, not a lot actually happens in this movie. It's just kind of spins its wheels a lot for a lot of it. It's kind of goes over the same. And
I think I would rather rewatch Stuck on You than Twin Falls.
I mean, anyway, Penny shows up at this hotel, and it's this real sleazy hotel. Well, first of all, we get the foreshadowing because she pays the cab driver, and the cab driver hands her a $2 bill, which was the big foreshadowing leading up to what's about to happen, right? And she looks at this very curiously, like she's never seen it before, kind of thing, right? So, and neither of us are American, so I don't know. Do they have $2 bills in America, or is it? we both live in Japan, and here there's such a thing as a 2,000 yen
Yeah.
bill, which is very rare, but they
Yeah.
have it. So I don't know. Is it?
Isn't there? I'm sure. Isn't
they
there
have it?
saying phony is a $2 bill?
No, it's a $3 bill.
Ah,
So
so maybe they do have.
so
two
maybe
then.
they do, but they're
it's
not
rare.
not rare or common, or
rare.
maybe they used to be. I don't know. I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be fake money because if she was why. But anyway, regardless, the $2 bill was our foreshadowing for what will happen, right? So
Can't
then,
wait.
so then she gets into this hotel, and it's just full of just kooky characters, right? Just just wacky, off the wall.
Should we knock this off now?
And so she gets into this elevator, and this elevator operator is this real old guy, real just like, what did he say? 52 years, and I still haven't guessed the right floor,
Yeah.
right? Right.
He's straight. He's kind of sub-Lynch kind of
Yeah.
character.
So and it's they're real like, I don't know what really when the Polish brothers were writing this movie, and they wanted to do this kind of soft, sweet. I mean, the idea was to do this kind of sweet, dramatic movie about these kind of like brothers,
damaged characters,
and stuff
outsiders.
and I don't know why they set it up for the first 15 minutes with these really like wacky, like unrealistic comedic characters. It just didn't set me up for the movie that was to follow, and I was like, I was very confused by it.
This was their debut feature.
I believe so, yeah.
Because they've gone on to make.
I think they did some shorts before.
Right,
that,
but they've gone on to make us. I think this was the only film of theirs I've seen. So I was just looking on the IMDb. Michael Polish has gone on to direct quite a few features.
Yes, he's done quite a few things, but nothing very big or very.
Well, nothing that's
famous,
broke out. I mean, I suppose the Astronaut Farmer is the most well known because it's got Billy Bob Thornton in it, right?
Yeah, so,
But
which I didn't see. So.
No, I didn't. I haven't seen any of them, so it's unfair to judge them.
Yeah,
but this is not making me rush out.
No rush out to see anything. Yeah. So anyway, so then she gets up, and of course the elevator doesn't go all the way to the floor, so she's got to climb up, and it's and the lights are buzzing, and she says when she comes out of the elevator, she goes, "What's that smell?" And he says, "Pee." Right, like joke, and
I'm going to take a nap while you.
And then
to be fair, your 10-15 minutes of that's generous. I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I had warning buzzers
really?
5 minutes in. Yeah.
Well, I was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. And I was watching. I was like, this is kind of interesting. I wonder where they're gonna go with it. So I was like, hey, let's use this and we'll see how it goes. And even if it's bad, then we still got that to talk about, right? Which we do. Right. So and then she wants to find the correct room, but none of the rooms have any numbers on them, and she says, which one is it? And he says, it's the brown one. And he goes, well, they're all brown. And it's a little joke there that we can't figure out what the room it is. And then she goes, is it this one? He goes, well, what does it look like? Oh, it's brown. No, it's the next one. Okay, well, if you knew what he said. And then randomly from the next, you hear this like kind of like weird like kind of synthesizer music playing, and what's going on?
The fucking music in this thing.
It was very 90s. The music was very 90s.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Very indly, noodly, boodly.
Yeah. Indie 90s.
At the very start, it has that kind of, some kind of chanting or something. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
But then it segues into this. That music drove me nuts.
So it was this really weird, like, it was like this carnival, like, sideshow kind of, like, music. What is going on? Where's that music coming from?
There's
and then
people
randomly
getting married as well.
So randomly she goes through, and the door opens, and then this couple comes out, and there's confetti being thrown at them, like they've just it's just been a chapel. And I was like, why would there be a chapel in the 7th floor of this random hotel?
Vegas, right?
It was like a hotel room, and I was like, and it looked like the person was literally throwing confetti, like standing at the door, throwing it after them, and they're like so happy, and they come out, and they're like this. Anyway, it was just it just seemed very, very eccentric, and I was like, oh well, maybe there's some interesting ideas in this movie. So anyway, so we continue on.
How wrong you were.
Anyway, so she gets into the room finally, and the two beds are pushed together, and we see the first shot of one of our protagonists, as we only think he's only one. One of them sticks his head out the window, out the door, and says, "Oh, I'll be with you in a minute." And this is Francis, and find out his name is Francis. And so here's the big secret. You think the movie is called Twin Falls, Idaho, and so you think it's a small town in the state of Idaho, but of course it's not. Ho ho ho!
It's Idaho Street. The hotel's on Idaho Street.
And the twins are named Falls. Their name is Falls. Francis.
And they're twins.
And they're twins.
Just in case you didn't get that.
So Blake and Francis Falls.
So just to reiterate.
We're living at a hotel on Idaho Street, I say. So that's why Twin Falls, Idaho. So how clever they must have thought they were for that title. So anyway, and so she sits down and says, "This hotel is full of freaks," and then sure enough, we get the first shot of our protagonists, who are Siamese twins or conjoined twins, and then she freaks out and she asks for a cup of water, or they give her a cup of water, and then come back and she's disappeared and she's left. Okay, so anyway, so then she makes some phone call that she's really upset, and she ends up coming back to the room because she's forgotten her purse, and also because she wants to use the phone. Although, if she's so terrified of these conjoined twins, why would she go back there? I don't know really what to say. Anyway, so she goes back, and this time apparently she's not scared anymore, and she goes back, and she's making a phone call to, we assume, is her pimp or a friend of some kind, saying she's broke, and the twins are having a birthday cake, and the cake is actually like decorated differently on one half from the other half. And so then they, light the match and, start light the candles, and then they each blow out their own individual candle. And so they have a little bit of, obviously they've worked a lot on, one is only using the left arm, one's only using the right arm.
Oh, they share a leg, don't they?
Yes. Well, no, there's one,
foot.
there's a shared leg, but then there's a little tiny leg that you see later. That's up, right? Okay, like maybe you just stop.
And they have an arm each.
Yeah, and they have one arm.
Yeah, no, attention was wandering. I actually did. I watched it actually in double speed.
Oh, did you? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I have a player that you can do it in double speed, and you still keep the sound.
Okay.
Because 110 minutes.
Yeah. It was quite long, and I watched it on the train, on the bullet train, and so I was kind of basically, I had like 2 hours to kill with literally nothing else to do, so I basically, but even then I was like, look at my watch, I was like, when is this gonna finish? So
it's the old joke, isn't it, about I walked out of an in-flight movie.
Yeah. So anyway, so their whole, they obviously did a lot of practicing about doing things in unison. They turn their heads in unison, they nod in unison, they use the fork in unison, and that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's kind of their bit. And so the idea now is that they're really this very sweet, and so you're supposed to kind of like them, I guess, a little bit. And and then it turns out that one of them starts puking a little bit later, and we find out, and then so she calls Miles, this doctor, played by Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, Bauchow, who is a Bacau. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
I've seen him in a lot of things.
He is a pretty relatively famous
yeah.
character actor. He's been he was in a View to a Kill, Clear and Present Danger, The Cell, Panic Room, Carnival, that kind of stuff. Right. So he's done quite a few stuff. He's quite a recognizable character actor.
And he's fine.
So.
There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with any of the performances.
No. All the performances were pretty decent.
Yeah, everything's
it's just I think the script was just really maudlin and
earnest to a fault.
Earnest and
unfortunately, it's not Ernest Goes to Camp, which I would have rather watched.
It was very
conjoined Ernest.
Adolescent. I think, you know what it reminded me of? Here's a little bit off topic, but this reminded me of.
Please go off topic.
Was that when I was in my first year of university, just when I just graduated from high school, my high school used to do this thing was called the Sears Drama Festival, and it was a drama festival where the high schools from all over the region would enter a one-act play into this festival, and then there was like a competition, and then the best plays would get chosen to go on and stuff like that. And when I was just graduating from school, I wrote the play that that school did, that my high school did, and so I wasn't in the high school anymore, so I wasn't allowed to be in it, but I wrote it. At the time, I thought it was, same kind of idea. I'm sure I thought it was really deep, and I was being really, I was so smart by writing this play, and it was about a cult of people who worship themselves, and and stuff like that. Which sounds terrible. It's just me saying it, right? So, but and I remember when I submitted, I went to the opening performance, and I remember the judge. They have like adjudicators there, and the judge was really impressed by the script. But you're in university, so you can't be shortlisted for the award, the rating award. But I got the impression that I would have gotten some award had I been still a high school student at the time. And so just this past week was my high school's like anniversary of some kind, like a 4th anniversary. So all over Facebook, there was all these people posting about my high school's like, and everyone's coming back for this thing. And one person emailed me and mentioned this play that I had done. Again, it would have been around the same time actually. No, it would have been a little earlier than that. It would have been like about mid-90s, 96. It would have been a little bit before this movie. And
it's all a dark time.
Yeah, that was the 90s, yes. And so, and so she was like, and I was like, oh, I'm surprised that anyone still remembers that play. And she was like, oh, we still talk about that play all the time. It's, it's blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I couldn't believe it, because my memory of it is that it was just fucking shit, right? And I'm a little embarrassed by it, because but it's something that you would write when you're just starting, when you're just, So that's my impression of this movie as I was watching it.
Maybe there's someone doing a podcast about your play.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, they could be about my play. But that was my impression of this movie, was that it was like something that they probably thought was really good and they were really proud of it at the time. But like 20 years later, looking back on it, you'd be probably as embarrassed by it as I am by that play kind of thing. Which is that this, like, oh god, we were learning. It was a learning process, I think. So I think they were just coming up on it, So
to be fair, we didn't actually try and get the Polish brothers on the phone, right?
I guess, But I'm just, I'm
right
guessing, right, kind of thing. So
because we could be horribly wrong, and they could.
Anyway, let's sum up here. I don't want to do too many details there, so it's not really that worth it, kind of thing. So, but basically,
not just that it's not worth it. I'm actually kind of impressed how much I'm struggling to actually remember. What happened between the beginning and the end?
That's what kept my interest, was that I was taking notes as I was watching it, because that kept me watching, because I was like, oh, I need to write this down because we need to talk about this. So that's the only reason why
I got as far as my last note was born from a cow, not funny. and after that I just stopped.
Yeah, there was. You got to watch the movie to understand that joke.
No. Don't be doing that.
They have a lot of kind of unfunny jokes. There's like, Miles. So Miles, the doctor, shows up and he says, "Oh, you're visiting from Siam," and they kind of look very confused. And she's like, "Oh, well, Penny told me that you were from They were Siamese. They wanted some Siamese doctors."
The thing is, if you were conjoined twins, you would have heard that joke.
Yeah.
A million fucking times by the time of the age of these people are.
But I get the impression about the Mark and Mike Polish, they didn't really strike me as very good actors either. They're just very kind of like, very kind of like this kind of like curious, like this kind of aliens, like they were kind of like had never seen this world, and what's happening in this.
They're both doing the same thing. They're both doing that kind of.
Well, with the exception of which one? Mike Polish, who is Francis, the sick one, who spends half the movie. He spends half the movie asleep, because I guess that was his way of, because he was directing the movie, so he didn't want to have to worry about his performance. So he's basically, because he was sick. Quote unquote sick. He did half the time where he would just kind of close his eyes and he would just like put his head down.
I had a job once. I had a TV drama job once where I was in a coma.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty easy.
Yeah, pretty easy job. So I think because he was the director, I assume he was trying to do the easier acting job. So his job was just kind of just to lay there, and so the brother Mark did most of the acting, I guess, kind of thing, you could say. Where he did all like he had the kind of the romantic subplot with Penny and the kissing and.
What movie am I blanking on now? Isn't there? There's one famous example of a movie where one of the famous co-stars is asleep for most of the film. What's that? There's like a big mainstream movie and there's someone's in it.
While you were sleeping?
No, and someone is just. Their role is just being in a coma for most of it. I can't remember what it is.
There's probably lots of movies with that. Like, do you know who's in it?
Anyway, awesome digression there, Clive.
Speaking of comas, let's go back to the movie. Anyway, so we find out that Francis, the sick one, has the flu, but it's strange that one does and one doesn't, and so that's the whole bit. And so even though they're sharing blood, one is sick and one has the flu, one doesn't. And so Penny randomly just starts digging through their shit and like doesn't ask anything, just starts digging through there and finds like their birth certificate, and that's how we find out that they were adopted and find out that
really I don't remember that
at
all.
Just a really quick thing, and then they're like,
they are former circus freaks as well, right?
Yes, they're circus freaks. So the idea here was that mom had them, mom freaked out and then basically gave them to the circus, and they were adopted by this circus woman, and then they grew up in the circus and then have. Now, I don't really understand why they left. I guess the idea is that Frances is sick, so it was sort of like their last hurrah before Frances died, and so they went to this thing, and I guess they had ordered this prostitute to get Frances to have some sex before he could die, but then they never really bring it up or say, hey, we paid for you, and there's no reference to the sex ever again.
It's a shame, that would have spiced things up if there had been a sandwich scene.
Or some sort. But
we don't go anywhere near that.
Well, they do have a little bit of a love scene, but I don't know. It's sort of implied that she has sex with the healthy one, but it's sure.
I think that's the thing with this movie as well, is there's, even though the subject matter is what it is, there's no edge at all, is there?
Yeah.
It's all so blunted and kind of very, like we said, earnest and very 90s, that kind of super PC. There's nothing. There's nothing at all to. Can you tell I didn't like it?
I was curious how, because as I'm watching, I was like, okay, I don't really like this movie again. So, but I was thinking, it's like, oh, Clyde probably thinks I really like this movie. So, I
was wondering. But to be fair, so did I, apparently.
Once upon a time, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That boggles my mind. It really does. I must have been such a different person.
Yeah, it really puts things in perspective. 20 years
does.
ago, you changed a lot, right? So that's one reason never to get a tattoo.
And also, don't write a book of 7,000 movie reviews that takes you over 10 years. Because 10 years now I'm tempted to go and pull it off the shelves, if anyone was buying it.
Yeah. And so this movie involves some jokes such as, maybe I'll call you when I'm single, and and things like that. So, let's jump ahead. So then we have...
the end.
Well,
good talking to your own. See you next episode.
So anyway, then we randomly meet mom. They go to show up and meet their mother, because we find that that's the reason for their sojourn is they've left the freak show so they could find mom before they die, and so they show up at mom's apartment as trick-or-treaters, and she very strangely opens the door and randomly immediately takes their Polaroid picture without even actually looking at who she's taking a picture of. So the idea is that she's supposed to be taking pictures of the kids, but first of all, she did it straight so that she got who are like the same height as she is. So why would she be taking a picture if it was an actual trick-or-treating child? She would be taking a picture of the wall behind the kids. This didn't make any sense. So so she stood up and they sort of pretend to be grown men trick-or-treating as Siamese twins, and she kind of like,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah. She says that's cool and laughs kind of half-heartedly, and then gets freaked out and leave. And then we understand that this is probably mom that they've come to find, and so she anyway. Then
one of them dies.
Yeah, and then there's a joke about the we don't have a human mother. We're too big for the mom's stomach. So they put us inside a cow, and so that was and then they moo, and then that was where you stopped doing your jokes. You're showing your notes. So then they end up going to a party, and there's the token gay friend, who's in a half man, half woman costume, and there's other people with the Siamese twin costume, and in making the point is that these other two people are in a Siamese twin costume, but they're just tied together, and so then they both want to go in a different direction, so they just untie themselves and then they go.
Don't understand.
So it's like, it's so.
This is the only actually interesting point I have to make with. So you can carry on. Yeah. I'm going to go for a walk. The only thing of interest that I noticed was Hollywood Lawn is in this film. Do you know Hollywood Lawn?
No.
Hollywood Lawn was he died a few years ago. transvestite immortalized in Lou Reed's Walk on the Wild Side.
Oh, okay.
Holly came from Miami, I think.
Oh, okay.
Hitchhiked away across the USA.
Okay, so that was her.
Yes, Hollywood
Okay.
Blonde. So I think she was a kind of hanger-on in the Warhol scene.
I see.
And she's credited as flamboyant at party, which I think is actually, you know, the person they talk to in the part two who's like, I love your conjoined twin friends, and
well,
then she finds out it's not a costume, and I think that's Hollywood Blonde.
Well, there's two of them. There's one that's like the half man, half woman. That's the gay friend.
Yes.
That's not.
Oh, that's not Hollywood.
I think it's just a
a
featured extra.
Flamboyant.
Yeah, there is one other kind of drag queen that you see.
Well, anyway, that's
I think it's probably her. Anyway, so.
And that's all I got.
Anyway, and then there's they untie each other. Anyway, so and then Penny dances with them, and then she decides that she's gonna have sex with them. So that brings them back to their apartment, and they play guitar, and she keeps all her some which is a song that they apparently wrote themselves, which you can really tell is real, real 90s
so
indie. So they play guitar, one hand each, and so obviously they've practiced that quite a bit. And
that's the thing. I mean, I'm not faulted. Obviously, they've put their heart and soul.
Yeah,
into
they
this.
did it. Yeah,
it's
so
just,
it just in seeing it from 20 years perspective, it just doesn't hold up, doesn't work. Yeah. And for some reason, she keeps all her clothes on the fire escape. I'm not sure what was going on there. So
I'm guessing as well. 20 years ago, close to 20 years ago when I watched it, I probably watched the whole thing at normal speed on my TV set.
Right.
Whereas at this point in the film we're at now, I think at about this point, I switched it to double speed and then had one screen on one half of my computer screen. And I think I had some pornography on the other side. I may have been masturbating during the second part of this movie.
Okay, so I think I'm really on my own here. So as you were at that time too. So anyway, so he teaches her how to play guitar, and and so then she draws a poster of their new band, and they decide they're going to make a band together or something. I don't know.
I might get the two confused. From here, there isn't a scene in 24
where
a cheerleader gets
this part
by
is
50 guys.
This part is really hard to, because then they have a whole, which was really really strange. They had a whole about a 5-minute discussion about her butt. At this point, maybe you don't. So it's about 5 minutes where they just discuss her butt for 5 minutes. So I'm not really sure what the point of that was.
Even they're losing interest in the film.
Yeah, that was really way out there.
We talk about Michelle Hicks' ass for a while. Yeah? Why not?
Anyway, Michelle Hicks actually very pretty in this movie. She's quite a good actress. I was surprised she didn't become bigger after this movie, or at least bigger in her life anyway, because she was quite good. I thought.
I have no problems with
and so then she puts on toenail polish, which polishing her toenails.
Another 90s thing
very
to
nice
do.
thing, and as well maybe a little bit of a joke there, because their name are Mike and Mark Polish. I don't know, very Polish, right? I don't know.
We were all, I think I remember at some point in the 90s letting some girl put nail polish on me.
Us, so. But anyway, so this is a technique to use, and then she finds the fourth leg, which has been hiding this whole time, which looks like just a really giant penis. It's sort of like hanging. It's about as long as their knee, up to their third leg knee. So anyway,
this was confusing when I was watching this alongside the.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. Yeah, so, and so then we go into some of the real tropey, you're a Siamese twin. What kind of questions would you ask a Siamese twin? Do you ever feel lonely? Well, what's it like being next to someone all the time? And
I get 2 minutes in the morning when I'm alone.
I get 2 minutes of being myself. Those are the 2 minutes that I forget that I am what I am, and just the eye rolling. So whatever. So, I mean, no offense to real life conjoined twins. I'm sure that you definitely have your stuff, but I think it sort of trivialized a real conjoined twin situation. I think so. Anyway.
I'm wondering actually, there's that thing as well, that because the Polish brothers aren't conjoined, they're just twins, and you do get the feeling that as if they're almost they feel as if, well, we're not conjoined, but we can kind of
get a feel for what it must be like.
So I'm thinking, no, you
no,
can't.
you don't. You guys are free.
Yeah.
You guys can do whatever you want. You have your own lives. One's a director, one's an actor.
Yes.
Go do your
You're
thing.
free enough to, I don't know, for instance, ride a BMX along the cliff. Because that's the dream sequence.
So you're jumping ahead there.
Sorry, I wouldn't want to do that. Are we still talking about this?
So this is also where we introduce the and do you ever think about separation? And this is of course when we finally get the trophy which we talked about already, which is the every sad ending becomes happy because it's only sad because the writer stops telling the story, and it's it just goes on. It's just untold, and this is I get the impression, knowing how I wrote that play when I was in high school, that this is really where they started. This was probably they were like on
this is awesome.
Yeah, they were probably like smoking weed one day, and one of them was high. Is like, hey, that's deep, man. Let's write something about that. And then they decided to write a whole play. Hey, we could be Siamese twins, and they just wrote the whole thing around this idea, which I'm sure it was like their basis for the whole thing. And it's just and maybe in the late '90s it was really profound, really deep, but now it's just wow. Anyway, enough to be said about that. So then enter our next stock character, Jay, who is somewhere in the entertainment field, but he's this real like sleazy, entertainment, like shark skin suit, kind of like, hey guys, I'm gonna profit on your used car salesman type kind of thing, right? And I'm not really sure who he is or how he gets there. If he's the pimp or he's someone, I don't know who he is anyway. So he's trying to sell them up, and of course they get really nonplussed about this. And but of course Penny doesn't know he's there, and so then she comes in and she finds out that he's been selling. He drags him out into the hallway, and she yells at him. And this is when we find out that randomly, you maybe missed this part. Right? It was very small, but you find out that her brother is actually has some sort of mental disability or something like that. So that's why she feels connected with these guys, because she wants to help them, and so because she has this brother or whatever. So anyway, so then they go back in to get him, and then they find out that
because it's
the
same thing, right?
Of course, mentally handicapped. Right? So of course, and they've left because they've gotten scared by this thing, and they've run away. And so then there's a whole scene where they're in the park and people are just staring at them walking, and so there's just people staring, and then they're in the park talking to each other, and people are at the fence of the park just watching them, and so then they
running out of steam there on.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to read my writing here. So then she goes to the room. She goes back to the room to try to apologize because she feels bad, but they won't let her in, and so then she's.
Speaking of apologies, where's mine?
What? It's okay to broaden our horizons. We don't have to watch everything we like. That's boring. We just watch this movie's great. Finish. Okay, right? So it's good to talk. I
suppose I didn't. Although you did suffer Strozek, but you weren't too keen on. But this is a whole new level.
Well, anyway. But you agreed, so...
No, I'm not. I'm just... It's just banter.
Yeah. Anyway, so then we go back... So now we've got this real, like, maudlin, really kind of morbid, and, like, kind of, like, sad,
What do you mean we're going back to...
No, it has been this. And then we go back to this kind of, like, quirky feeling from the beginning, where they finally go into that room where it had the really bad synthesizer music playing. We find that it actually is a chapel, and run by none other than Garrett Morris of Saturday Night Live fame, who's this real kooky preacher who, and then, of course...
Which is worse, the kooky or the maudlin? Because it's kind of a frying pan of the fire.
I think the problem was that it just didn't work together, that they didn't know what they were doing. If it was all kooky or all maudlin, then it would work, but there would be at least something, you know what I mean? But I was just confused. I was like, wait, what's going on? Like, I assumed they were trying to go for like comedic relief or something like that kind of thing, but it was just not working. It was just... Anyway, so he's and his name... This, of course, Garrett Morris's name is Jesus. Of course, his name is actually Jesus, right? So he's a preacher named Jesus. So Jesus, so of course, Francis is sick, and that's the whole thing, is that one is sick, and so he takes them to the hospital.
They were really high when they came up.
Yeah, I think they had so
Jesus. Oh man.
Anyway, so then Penny arrives at the hospital. We have no idea how she's found out that they're at this hospital or how she got out, but she shows up, and then there are other cameo by a famous person comes in, and none other than Mr. William Catt of The Greatest American Hero comes in as the Doctor.
And House.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. And House, yeah. So he comes in, he's the Doctor, and he's the one who says, telling Penny, this prostitute who just barely met them, that he tells her everything about them, and she sees their X-rays and stuff and how they're all conjoined and stuff, and then he says that he has to split them, that they're both going to die. And that Blake, the healthy one,
this sounds a bit more familiar, so I think I'd come by now.
Come back by now. Okay, come and you come back to the movie. Okay,
Okay, so I'd put it out to full screen.
Back to full screen, but still on double play, right? So
you're still on double play. Oh yeah. I'm not a masochist.
So
taking a breather.
So Blake now has a 50% chance of survival because if they separate, but it looks like Francis is probably going to die. So then Penny goes to see the mom again. So the mom, as we've seen her before, the mom is played by Leslie Ann Warren, also a bit of a famous character actress. I was mostly famous from her from Clue. With Clue, she played Miss Scarlet, I think, so she's also a little bit recognizable. And also forgot to mention that Jay, the kind of used car salesman type, was played by John Grease, who I know as Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite.
Okay.
He's the football throwing, the uncle.
I've only ever seen that one.
Okay, anyway, so that's where I remember him from. But he was also in Carnival and Taken with Liam Neeson.
Oh, the Liam Neeson one.
Yeah,
not the TV series.
I don't think so. I think so. Yeah. So anyway, so then they, so she goes and talks to mom, and we get the whole sad story about why mom gave them up in the first place, and how she can't really deal with it, and why she couldn't deal with it at the time, and that she felt really guilty, and then
she probably, I suspect she actually gave them up because they kept talking about fucking this isn't the end of the story and crap like that, so I kicked them out. Nothing to do with them being conjoined.
Yeah.
They're just a couple of pretentious twats. I didn't want them around the house anymore.
Yeah.
That's the backstory.
Yeah. So pretentious, fucking kids.
And they fucking trick and treated. They're grown men.
So she feels guilty, and then Penny randomly finds the Polaroid that she had taken on Halloween on the floor. So apparently mom doesn't clean at all because the Polaroid's still laying there, and then finds the picture of Blake, but it's only been one of them, not both of them. So, and then the Miles comes back. The Doctor comes back, and he just comes in randomly, and he knows that he lets know that from the beginning, and he checked them out at the beginning of the movie, that he knew right away that they had to die. And so, but he just didn't say anything because maybe he figured that that's why they had come to that hotel, was to die together. So mom finally sucks up her guilt and comes to the hospital and meets the sons since they were born. And
I think the screen went split and I went for another run.
Well, you're
I recover quickly. If I'm bored.
High recovery time.
Yeah.
So then they wheel him out to do the big surgery, and Blake doesn't want them to go, so she's grabbing onto stuff and doesn't want to go, and then it goes into our dream sequence where they're riding bicycles, and so now they're separate and they're riding bicycles, and then we get the big symbol where suddenly one appears on the cliff on the other side, and they wave at each other, and then the one disappears. So
what could it mean, Ron?
What could it mean? It's so...
I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, it was very, very subtle. So yeah. But I'm sure in the 90s it was, whoa, that's a really good idea.
Yeah,
they're very, they're showing that they're separated now.
Yes, I mustn't forget, I'm being cynical, but I mustn't forget that I was equally as guilty as you once upon a time. Well, no, we're both, I mean, it's not as if you're... sticking up for it, is it?
And then to really just hammer down the point, as soon as
just in case you didn't get it in the back there,
they didn't get that they are now separated and one's dead. They cut to Penny splitting a pair of chopsticks. So just now it's double symbolism. Wow.
Brilliant.
I'm sure they thought they were quite clever for coming.
This reminds me of those Monty Python had that scene, the parody when they cut in old movies during love scenes, like stock footage of like a train entering a tunnel.
Yeah, exactly.
Oil spurting out of the ground.
And the volcano erupting in the air. So exactly. And so now apparently Penny works at this diner now that they've introduced before. Now she's a waitress now randomly, and she goes and then this is where she meets Miles, and so then she goes to find them, and they've gone back to the freak show, or he has gone back to the freak show because now Francis has died. Now we just have Blake. So Blake has gone back to the freak show, and she goes to find them at this freak show, and who is the person who talks to them and introduces them but none other than the lady from Poltergeist. The
Rubenstein, is it?
I can't remember her name.
Zelda.
I can't. The dwarf with the really high voice. That's really.
She's in that very good film actually. Anguish. Did you ever see that?
So trying to get a real freak to be there anyway. So
I don't know. Does she count as a freak? She's
I guess she's
short with a high voice.
Well, yeah, I think she's meant to be a little bit not normal, I guess, right? So they were going freakish away from the normal area. So I think she's quite.
I find your language very offensive.
No, I don't mean that she's I think she was awesome in Poltergeist. I think she's very, very effective. She was a really good actress for her thing, but I think
it's too late to take it back now. You call her a freak.
Anyway, so then she goes in, and Blake is now single and laying on his side, and he's sleeping. So she crawls in bed with him, and they wake up, and then they in case you didn't get it the first time, they go back to this whole the story's not over because it's not a sad ending, because it just keeps going. And so the idea is that now it's a sad ending because Francis died, but it's going to keep going, and there's going to be a happy ending eventually.
And it does keep fucking going.
Going. And then we see that actually, even though they've cut them apart, that he's lost one of his legs. He only has one leg and one arm now. And so now he's just this guy with a crutch, and then Penny's with him, and then that's how it ends. And the story continues.
That's right.
The story does continue, but not thankfully on film.
So, what do we make of this movie then?
So, I have to say, my apologies to the Polish brothers if you're listening to this. I'm sure you guys, really gave it your best effort.
I think they should apologize to us.
And I have to say, at the time when this was released, I really liked this movie.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that, but yes.
But I think it just isn't holding up as well as we would have liked. So I apologize for dragging your first movie through the mud. But hopefully some of your other movies have been doing better than this. So I don't know. He isn't.
What else are we wrong about from this dark period in the 90s?
So.
Was Quentin Tarantino actually a really good actor?
Well, you were wrong about Back to the Future Part 2, so that does hold up. So.
Well, no, I didn't think it was good in the first place.
No, so you're wrong. So you are wrong. You're still wrong.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't gone back to
watch it. I think you will go back and you'll realize that you were wrong. That it's actually good. So, but anyway, so that's Twin Falls, Idaho. I'd recommend giving it a pass, but if you're curious, I mean, it can't stop you.
Yeah, if you
it certainly is a snapshot of 1999. It's very much a product of the late 90s.
If you need something to fill half of your screen while wanking, it's not on the top of the list, but it'll fill.
But apparently it works.
Well, yeah.
That's what she said. So
yeah. So. Moving swiftly along.
Yes.
Did you watch Chained for Life?
I didn't watch Chained for Life. I'm sorry, I did not watch Chained for Life. So.
Fucking asshole! I have to watch this crap. So
because again, what I was afraid of doing, because we talked about watching Chained for Life when we were doing Basket Case, but then the problem with Basket Case, we did Basket Case 1, 2, 3, and then what was the other thing?
We did the Brain That Wouldn't Die, Chained for Life a little bit.
No, what was the Leslie Nielsen one?
Oh, Dark Intruder.
Dark Intruder, yeah. So we ended up doing too many. So I was worried about watching Chained for Life and then being too long and having too much to talk about. So I was like, I don't really want to talk about it. But definitely there is a trend of Siamese twins, being... So, of course, we started with Basket Case. Well, not two. There's Stuck on You.
Yeah. Oh, there's that Hong Kong one as well called The Siamese Twins, which I've never seen.
Right, okay, yeah. So definitely, it's an untapped resource. There's only three or four movies about it, so we can do more about it. So
a sequel to Twin Falls, Idaho is on the cards.
Yeah, Twin Falls, Iowa.
Yeah, or Twin Falls Harder. Twin Falls, Idaho 2.
This time it's personal.
Electric Boogaloo.
Oh, that's our first movie.
There we go. Yes, copyright.
Copyright.
Yeah.
Clive Owen, 2017.
Yeah, so Chained for Life is a thing from the 50s starring real conjoined twins, Daisy and Violet Hilton. And actually, talking about going back and rewatching, I'd seen Chained for Life and initially found it quite a fascinating film just because you don't see many films starring genuine conjoined twins. But rewatching it, it's... I think once is enough for this one as well.
For Chained Life too as well. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely worth seeing once because it's Daisy and Violet Hilton were real conjoined twins. They were British actually, and I think they ended up. They might have gone to Germany and some other parts of the world as well, but basically in the US they ended up, touring and Freaks, and they were in Todd Browning's movie Freaks as well. In real life, they ended up dead of the Hong Kong flu in a hotel room somewhere in the 60s, I think.
Right.
I found out, I haven't seen it, there's actually a documentary about them called Bound by Flesh, which is now on my to-see list.
Right.
But this film, Chained for Life, has them kind of playing a fictional version of themselves, because in real life as well, they were married to different guys, which is kind of interesting. And in this film, one of them marries this stage sharpshooter who ends up very much like the Freaks storyline. Actually, you remember in Freaks the hot chick marries the dwarf but fools around with the strong man, if you remember. So it's similar to that. There's this sharpshooter who ends up marrying one of the sisters, but it's all just for publicity. And then the other one shoots this sharpshooter Lothario guy. So it ends with the framing is a judge talking about the case, and then it ends with a, what would you do kind of thing, because, well, should one Siamese twin, conjoined twin, get away with murder, or will the other one get the death penalty along with, that kind of thing. But it's kind of it's better than Falls Idaho, let's put it that way, and about half as long as well. So it's only like an hour long or something like that. Yeah. So if you have time, I would recommend taking a look at Chained for Life, which I think is from 1951. Or yeah.
I think it's it. And I don't know if it's actually related or not, but there's actually in a post-production right now, a new movie called Chained for Life coming out next year.
Well, it could be, because
I don't know if it's a remake or if it's something else completely different. Just with
I read that this Bound by Flesh, the documentary, I think there's maybe a fictional, biopic in the works. That could be that. I don't know.
So, just for wrapping up sake. So what happens to the Chained for Life? Do they kill them, or do they?
Well, they don't.
Oh, they don't. There's no end.
The choice is yours. Yeah.
Oh,
which
really?
is kind of interesting.
Okay,
as well.
leave it open. I see.
Yeah.
So to choose.
So we're running out of conjoined twins films.
Yeah. So we did Basket Case. We can still now. Next one will be Stuck on You.
Stuck on You and the Siamese Twins.
And the Siamese Twins. Yeah. So.
And that's
I'm sure there's gonna be something else. Or we can do Basket Case
well,
again.
I did hear of. Apparently, someone once made a hardcore sex film with Siamese Twins.
Really?
Yeah, but it hasn't surfaced. And I could just be a rumor, I don't know. But then again, thinking about how long the movie camera has been around now, and considering all the possibilities, I'm sure someone's made a...
I'm sure someone has someone somewhere. It's a snuff film or something.
If you can get... Long Jean Silver was a pretty big draw in her day, right? So I guess if Long Jean Silver can become a kind of porno star, then it's not...
Well, they made a porno with John Bobbitt. The guy got his penis cut off.
Yeah, Frankencock or something.
So again, if they can do one for him, there's a porno for everything, right? So anything you want. So I'm sure it's there somewhere. I don't know.
So I believe what we're doing now, Ron, is called filler, because
because
we don't want to talk about Falls Idaho anymore.
So anyway.
So
that's all I have to say about that.
Are you going to say sorry to me on the podcast?
Absolutely not.
No, we were both very, very wrong about this one. But it has been an education.
Yes, it has.
It has been an education.
And I think, to be honest, talking about movies that we don't really like is more interesting than talking about movies that I do like, because
watching them isn't.
I feel a little bit like Chris Farley. Did you ever see that sketch on Saturday Night Live with Chris Farley, where he had this ongoing sketch, which was quite funny, where he would have someone famous on, and so he would it was a sketch from Saturday Night Live where he would do the Chris Farley show, and he would be the host of this fictional talk show, and he'd have whoever the famous guest of that week on, like Robert De Niro or whatever, and they would come on and he'd say, hey, do you remember in Godfather where you shot that guy? You go, yeah. He goes, that was awesome. And that would be the end of it.
Right,
So,
okay.
so it's just sort of like, it's just reinforcing that something good. Yes, I like it, but I think it's actually, to be honest, I think it's more interesting to talk about things I don't like. So because I can give more justification for it, or reasons why, or think about. It gives me more thinking, internal discussion, where I can kind of think about why I don't like this, or why it doesn't affect me anymore. And this one I thought was very interesting because I used to like it, but now I don't. And why was that?
That is kind of interesting because it does make me think about, oh shit, what else do I have to go back and revise? Because it's one thing if you keep it to yourself. If you're putting something out in the world, then you feel a certain amount of responsibility, right? So this is my caveat for anyone having problems with any of my published reviews. And
you might as well plug your book while we're here, right? Your book is.
That's the. See, I'm a bit confused as to what my book is called. I think it's just called Spine Grinder, and then subtitled "The Movies That Most Critics Won't Write About." But and I like the design of the book is awesome, but I didn't do it. My publishers did it, and there's you have a copy, right?
Yes, I do.
On the cover, there's it says video, right, and in like a star, and it's right next to the Spine Grinder. So, to be honest, I haven't actually found much reference to it online, but the few people who have reviewed it seem to think the book's called Video Spine Grinder.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it looks like that's what the title is.
I see.
So, and that's okay. Video Spine Grinder is not. I mean, that's okay. But it's just Spine Grinder. Okay. That was an awesome plug.
It was a very good plug, yeah. So are you sold yet?
I would recommend...
You'll go right out and buy that book the same day you watch...
Just to figure out what the title is.
Just to watch the same day that you watch Twin Falls, Idaho, right?
Yeah,
so
it'll be bumper day. I recommend at least 10 copies per household. Right, that's enough of this, isn't it, Ron?
All right, well, thank you very much for joining us.
We'll be back next week with, I don't know, fucking Jar Jar Binks film or something.
What are some other terrible movies you'd like? You can email us at noemail.com.
Next time is my choice.
Yes,
So we'll have a semblance of normality and good
normality.
taste.
Okay, we'll see about that. I don't know about normality, but definitely there'll be something interesting.
Okay. But Ron.
Yes.
This isn't the end of the podcast.
Yes, because the podcast just goes on.
Just keeps going. We've decided to
stop recording.
Now. Addendum. Zelda Rubinstein is not in this movie. I repeat, Zelda Rubinstein is not in the movie Twin Falls, Idaho. We were in error. We apologize.